Hey, welcome to Made for More. My name is Aaron Burke. I am your host for this monthly podcast, and we are doing something unique because we are celebrating 2 years, 30,000 plus downloads of this podcast. And so as it has gone out to leaders all over the world, we're going to do something unique, and we're actually going to answer some of the top questions. And I have my friend, the one and only Bobby Sasser here, executive pastor at Radiant Church. Been friends since almost 20 years, a long time. And so Bobby's going to kind of pitch the questions to me. We'll have a good discussion. I think we got some good questions submitted. So
yeah, I think so. Well, hey, it's good to be back. Got my little podcast introduction a few months back.
You did, and that was one of the top podcasts too. People about how to grow an organization, how to multiply.
Well, it took my whole bonus to pay that off.
Yes,
but I definitely I spread the word. So, good. But no, it's a true honor to be back, and I love Q&As actually as a podcast listener. So I think whether you listen to this podcast all the time or if this is your friend shared it with you, Q&As are a great place to start. And so I'm excited. We're hearing from one of the best, and so why don't we just dive in?
Well, and I think it's important to know that I am hopefully going off the cuff with a lot of this.
Yeah.
Because what I want this to be is not like staged, scripted answers. So you might hear a lot of ums or, wells or whatever, those fillers, because I really wanted this to be a conversation and try to really dig deep. And I know you're a great question asker, so I think it'll be great.
For sure. And rawness is great. And
let's have a good time.
Thank you for being vulnerable and transparent.
We'll see how vulnerable we get, but...
why don't we kind of begin with the end in mind?
Okay.
So it's December. You just celebrated your 39th birthday.
Almost 40.
Almost 40. You're closer to 50 than you are 25. And so that's a big one.
That's depressing.
So, hey, you look great. You feel great. But no, we're at December, which is kind of crazy that we're already here at the end of the year. It feels like it's flown by. So as you kind of look back on 2022 as a whole, and I know there's so many things from family to ministry and personally, what do you feel like, what do you glean on as you look back on it? What are some of those biggest wins as you celebrated on your birthday? I know you do like a big evaluation and write a lot of stuff.
So I made 35 goals for the last year. And so I went through the other day and checked off, and I checked off 22 of the 35. So nice. I think that was a win.
Hey,
so when I think of that, I think, those are wins. Those are campuses that we open. That were financial goals that I had personally. That was generosity goals. That was goals with Katie and I in our marriage. So I break them down in like 5 categories, all of my goals. So I break down into a faith goal. I want to grow spiritually. I put a certain amount of devotions and journals that I want to write, and I did that. I write down a ministry goal. This is my work goals. This is when it comes to the church, when it comes to metrics, and when it comes to staffing. And so I make all that real specific. I put down fitness goals.
Nice.
Those are a big one.
Hey, those are great.
Bobby and I ran our first marathon, first and last, I would like to say for me.
I'm going to give it another shot, but yes,
Bobby would
I respect
another shot. We did a good job with that. So I did that fitness goals this year. And so had a bunch of those, mark those off the list. And then we break it down into family goals. I want to make sure that I have stuff within the family that we make sure we make happen. And then I do financial goals. I make sure that I make real strategic financial goals for Katie and I personally when it comes to investing and giving, when it comes to big purchases we're going to make. So all of that was strategic. So mapped all that out. 22 of them done. The rest of them will be carried over. I made 40 for my 39th year. So nice. I mapped all those out. But I think of when I look back on this last year, I'll talk about the church for a second, because I know we have a lot of church leaders. There's something that happens in year 9 and 10 that is so amazing. It almost feels like, the flywheel principle that Jim Collins talks about. It's like we were working so hard year after year after year, doing the same thing over and over and over again. We still are telling people every Sunday, go to Next Steps, get in a group, serve on a team, serve our community, give generously. And it feels like it gets mundane, but it doesn't get mundane. It gets monumentally growing, and the momentum builds.
Yeah.
And this year we saw some of our biggest miracles.
Absolutely.
Biggest miracles financially. We had 2 facilities that were given to us at a fraction of the cost, put in our lap.
Miracles, literally. Yeah.
Literally miracles given to us. And I think about it and I go, why didn't it happen in year 2 or 3 or 4?
Yeah.
And I think we had to go through what was going through in year 2, 3, or 4 to prepare us for now.
For sure. And honestly, what we did in year 2, 3, 4, XYZ prepared us for that. We would have actually, I don't know that we would have been able to handle it or to steward it. And so
one of the phrases that you used really well during the pandemic that I think was so significant is that we're going to slow down in order so that we can speed up.
Yeah, which isn't natural for you. I know that.
No, I don't like to slow down at all. But that was a lot of your direction, and I love that.
Yeah, it's cool to see, and I agree that there's exponential growth, and I know there's a lot of newer pastors, maybe church planners listening to this, and that's a different type of work. It's not one's better than the other. It's a different type of hard. There was a hard work principle in years 2, 3, and 4 that it's a different type of hard work now. It doesn't mean that it's an easy boat ride, but it does challenge. So let's dig in and look at that a little bit, because one of your phrases, which I love, is we have uphill dreams with downhill habits.
Yep.
You're only as healthy as your habits. And so a lot of this, and you mentioned a few different categories, so bounce around as much as you want, but you at some level have become habitual with the way that you go into the family dynamic, the church dynamic. And so talk through a little bit of your daily disciplines, maybe even map out part of your weeks, just so the listener can hear, because this, I think, looking at social media, in a social media age, it'd be easy to be following Pastor Aaron Burke and go, man, lucky guy, man, what? But I know behind the scenes that is really, you're the overnight success that took 20 years of a lot of habits. So talk through some of that.
Well, I really do believe and live by the fact that it's what's done in the unseen that really is celebrated in the seen. And so I this morning up at 4:45, making sure I do my quiet times. First thing I do during the day. I was actually really convicted. This is my vulnerable moment for everybody. I was really convicted in the end of April. I took a prayer retreat for 3 days. I was speaking at a conference in Michigan, tagged on a couple days to just pray, spend some time with the Lord. And the Lord really challenged me on the consistencies in my devotional life. So I would do devotions, but it's just not as consistent. And so I made a point that I'm going to go till the rest of the year without breaking a day. And that includes my journaling, which is like my soaps that I do every day.
For sure.
And so today is 250 days.
Incredible.
Without missing a day. So then I put my goal of next year is going, why can't I just go my whole 39th year without missing a devotional day?
That's huge, yeah.
So it takes some discipline, but I really think the Lord rewards what's done in the unseen when it's done behind the scenes. So the time with God, the investment in my marriage.
Yeah.
If the marriage falls, everything falls.
For sure.
And so I have made it a point. So Katie and I take days away, and we take some trips together. We had a really busy season through September and October, but we have a 7-7-7 policy. And if you might not have heard me teach this before, but every 7 days we try to go on a date. Whether that's a breakfast date or a dinner date, we try to get away. We have 5 kids at home. It's crucial that we get a date every single week. Every 7 weeks, we try to do a day away. Whether that's just going to the beach for a day, going to spend the night at a hotel. We're trying to do some kind of day away. And then every 7 months, we're going to do some kind of vacation together. This is crucial for our marriage. So we have a discipline in my marriage. I have a discipline in my devotional life. And then I have a discipline in my fitness. Now, I think this can become an idol for some guys.
For sure.
It can become about vanity. I've had to remove the idea this is about vanity and this is about longevity for me. So I want to live as long as I can with as much energy as I can so that I can make a big enough difference as I can. That's my whole vision in life. Long as I can with as much energy as I can that I can make as big as difference as I can. So I have my fitness goals. Now I'm a CrossFitter. I promote that. That's not for everybody. Everybody's got their thing. We became runners this year, which was not my thing. But I really feel like you've got to figure out what your habit is. I wrote out 9 things that I think are crucial life lessons that I've learned in 39 years. I put them on social media. And
they were great, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. One of them was simply that you need a hobby that keeps you healthy.
For sure.
That's it. So if that's hiking, if that's running, if that's jujitsu, I destroyed that one.
Jiu-jitsu, but
yeah, whatever.
I've officially started. I'm 2 classes in.
You're 2 classes in.
So my son is actually a big jiu-jitsu guy, and he's choking me out. So I had to raise the bar. Yeah,
you have to show him up. So I think having a hobby that keeps you healthy, I think is crucial. I don't want to go to the gym 5 days a week.
Yeah,
I don't want to, but we do things we don't want to do so that we can achieve things that everybody wants to achieve.
For sure.
So we have to make those decisions. I was telling my kids the other day, they hate math right now.
Yeah.
They hate it. And it's a struggle for my oldest. And I told her, and she's like, well, you get to do whatever you want. I go, I don't do anything I want.
Yeah.
I said, there's a few things I get to do that I want to do.
Right?
Everything else I have to do as a discipline.
That's good.
So you got to have those habits.
So let's dig into that a little. Let's kind of get the thing beneath the thing. Yep. So maybe there's some listeners out there today, and there's two different sides that I would love for you to kind of do a deep dive on. Yep. One is maybe there's a pastor and leader, and I follow some of them. I know their intentions, but it does come across a little bit with some vanity. And that is, I think if you could talk directly to pastors, because I think that is something that is, we got to monitor in our hearts as leaders. And then secondly, those that maybe feel like they're at an age and stage where that hasn't been a part of their life. You know, I know you have the story, which if you want to dig into a little, of when you were 30 and I think the chair broke, it was a great awakening of fitness. Because I think there's two different ends of the spectrums. One, too fitness oriented at the expense of some other things, and then some that feel like they're stuck and they can't. But with that, the mental game that some of that physical fitness brings, clarity to your prayer life, to vision. So if you want to kind of expound on that specifically a little.
Okay, so let's first of all talk about the vanity issue, because I think it's a great question. I think you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this really? Why are you really doing this? You know, I think there's always the jokes with pastors of like, do the curls before you get on a stage. You want your arms to look big. I think that's weird. Yeah. I think it's weird. I think it's a weird culture.
For sure.
I think we have to make sure we're doing stuff with the right motive. And for me, I had to have people call me out in this. Wow. So my brother, who is a listener, his wife, who told me she was over for my birthday, she's like, I love your podcast. And so shout out Lauren.
Hey, Luke and Lauren.
Yeah. But he's one of those people that can speak into my life. And so it was probably a year or two ago. He said, stop putting videos of you working out on social media.
Yeah.
And I said, but I think it's fun. He goes, nobody wants to see you work out. Now, you at the gym posting your workout, fine. But nobody wants to see their pastor shirtless in a workout.
Yeah.
So just giving a little advice for all of my friends that are pastors out there, put your shirts on, okay?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Leave your shirts on,
I think of my pastor growing up, okay? Let me not be weird, but I love my pastor. My youth pastor growing up, my senior pastor growing up. They're amazing men of God. I would have felt weird with them without a shirt.
Yeah. They weren't physical fitness based, so they left their shirts on for other reasons too.
Now, Pastor Richard, who does listen to this, you're very physically fit. Thank you, sir. But I think it's weird. I think we have to get to a place where we're people's pastors, we're mentors in people's lives.
For sure.
We're going to walk in modesty. I think the whole modesty culture, which kind of got weird, was all about females. I think it could be about men too. We got to be, modest is taught us. We celebrate that. But I really do think that you've got to check your motives. Why are you doing this? So for me, I just put boundaries up. So I'll post that I'm at a 6 a.m. workout. I'll post what the workout is. I have a lot of that kind of group that follows me, and there's people that are pastors that'll go, I'll do that workout too. That's cool. We'll compete. Yeah. That's fun. What I think is wrong is going, let me draw attention to my body.
For sure.
And I think that should be every Christian's motive, is to never draw attention to ourselves, but draw attention to Christ. So even our worship teams, we don't have like a whole list of like weird things that you can't wear. It's just don't draw attention to yourself. Draw attention to Christ.
It's very good.
So for me, I just want to make sure I'm drawing attention to Christ. I don't want ever people to be distracted by, and I don't think anybody's ever distracted by my looks, but I don't think anybody should be distracted by any part of me other than I want to draw attention to Christ. So that's the vanity side. The second part is it's never too late to start.
That's good.
Never too late to start.
For sure.
So that's what I love about CrossFit is there's people that are coming in and they're in their 40s and their 50s and they're out of shape. And they want to get their life in order. I saw a guy in the gym the other day, he's probably 40. He just had his first child. And he said, I want to live to see my kids graduate high school.
That's huge.
And get married. And he goes, and I just know that on the track I'm going, I just will never live that
wow.
way. And he was severely out of shape, but he was trying. I think you can always try. The story is, I was in India. I had just planted the church. I was 30 plus pounds overweight. And I was exhausted because all you do when you church plant is you go out to eat all the time. That's not all you do. That's a lot of what you do because you're just recruiting nonstop people. So I'd go dinner after dinner, lunch after lunch. And so I gained a bunch of weight. And so I would go to India with a group. I'm sitting there preaching at a pastor's conference. And while I sit in my chair, the chair snaps on the stage.
Oh, my goodness. So, which, to your credit, the Indian chairs aren't the most stable. Quality. But it is a little bit of an eye-opener.
And that's not a knock on our Indian brothers and sisters because these chairs were made in China, too.
Yes, just like exactly.
But they were cheap. I snapped. I went to the floor. And I looked at a buddy of mine who's on staff. And I said, that's it. That's my wake-up call. I'm getting in shape. Came back, joined CrossFit. And that's 8+ years later. And so, and you fluctuate.
Yeah.
I'm not in the best shape of my life. I'm in better shape than I was 9 years ago.
Correct.
So it's not, you're going to go through seasons.
Well, what I love about that is, and we'll close and move on, but I do think for the listener to hear that it's longevity in every way. Those categories, which I'd love to just kind of cap those off, is you had spiritual, marital.
You gotta have your faith, and you got to have a plan for your faith. You will never accidentally get to a place you want to spiritually.
For sure.
It takes intentionality.
And then I would just, if you can rapid fire,
So I'm going to do my spiritual life, which is my faith. I'm going to do my family, which includes my kids. I've got to have a vision for my kids.
Amen.
And without vision, they're going to perish, and I'm going to have vision for them. And then I say family, but then I also say my marriage. I put it as a separate category because I really want to intentionally invest in my marriage. And then I have my fitness, and then I have my finances. And then obviously the ministry that I'm in right now. So you've got to make sure you have something for every single one of those.
For sure. And I just want to encourage all the leaders out there that wherever you're at with that, the same way with physical fitness, it's never too late to start. And so maybe you're in a marriage and it's not as healthy as you want it to be. Start. Maybe your relationship with your kids, your church, fill in the blank of whatever things you're working on. And today's the day, to start. And so just jump in.
I preached on it yesterday on Romans 14, and it says, make every effort to do what leads to peace and mutual edification. And I think we stop at every effort. We stop at one effort. We tried and we stopped. We worked out, we didn't lose the weight.
Correct.
We went on a diet, didn't work. We went to counseling, it didn't help. And that's not what the scriptures say. This says every effort. You're going to keep trying until you win. Keep trying, keep trying. And I think that's the key to a great leader.
I love that. Let's shift gears just a little bit because I think, you've, been an incredible church planner, now pastor of a multi-site church. You have a huge family. So leadership is a big part of who you are and what you've done. So, and just for context, I started following you as a person on your team at 19, from a small group leader to now. And so I've kind of seen behind the scenes. And I know that one of our cultural standards, one of our values is it's not about what we can do. It's about the people that we can develop. It's about the people that we can raise. So what I'd love for the listeners to hear from you today is a little bit of principle. If you want to just kind of cast some vision to principles of leadership, and then some context, because I know there's some listeners today that they're the early days. They're maybe started a small group, they're recruiting volunteer people, all the way to pastors, church and business leaders that are now scaling an organization. So if you want to start us off though, what are the principles and what are some of the biggest kind of whys and vision of, because one other thing before you answer is I think something that you've done really well is you've delegated authority and you've been very transparent about that you don't have all of the answers. So if you just want to talk to us about all things leadership.
So let me just say it this way. One of my life phrases is that your greatest success will be your successor.
Yeah.
Your greatest ministry will not be what you do, but it'll be who you raise. And so those are two phrases I live by consistently. And so I was a youth pastor, and I never really cared for youth ministry. I mean, we were in it together. Yeah. You were a better youth pastor than I ever was. But my desire when I was there is I knew God called me there, and I knew that my greatest win would be who I can raise up within the youth ministry. Yeah. And so I did, leadership during the summer with the teenagers, and then all throughout the year I do internships and apprenticeships and raise up and young adults as youth leaders. And many of them are in ministry today, and many of them are on staff at Radiant. So I really feel like this is the greatest thing that we can do in leadership is raise up people. And let me just encourage some of the guys out there and girls out there who are listening to this, because you can't raise them up if you don't get close to them. So this medium really of leadership development works because it works to an extent, but it's not the most successful way of raising up leaders. I will never do a podcast that'll develop the next generation of leaders. Yeah. It's me going to Sri Lanka a few weeks ago with 5 guys on our team and hanging out with them for 9 days and sitting in the van and talking through life and talking through culture and talking through what we're doing and talking through decision making. That's real leadership. And I meet so many guys and they want leaders. They just don't want to be around people. Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't work. So get real vulnerable. I think Jesus is the best example of this. Yeah. He preached to the crowds of thousands, but that's not his biggest success. His biggest success was the 12 which eventually was the 3 who he did life with.
Yeah.
And they went over and changed the whole world. So you've got to get close to people. So I tell early church planners, get lots of dinners on the calendar, live life with people, have people in your home. It's just something about doing life together. Our executive leadership team meetings, I mean, you can testify to this. Like, they're not 30-minute stand-up meetings in my office. Let's make some decisions and get out.
For sure.
We're there early.
Yeah.
We're sitting around for hours.
There's a healthy amount of tension, I would say. There's
lots
relationship.
of tension.
I mean, even in the last week.
There's always food.
Yeah.
I mean, we order lunch.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. We have coffee when we get there. But there's lots of tension.
For sure.
Because my thing is it's not so much what I can teach them. The best leadership is not caught. I mean, the best leadership is not taught, it's caught.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have people around you. So I have the most crucial leaders in our church, our executive team, who pastor all of our staff, which is 80 plus people now. They pastor all of our dream team, which is hundreds and hundreds of people now. And those people are going to spend the most time with me.
For sure.
And we're going to be around each other a lot.
I love that. I want to dig in a little bit because I think this is, there's a lot of leaders out there that are maybe asking themselves, how close is too close? Mm-hmm. Where am I the leader and where am I the friend? I feel like we hear a lot of people that maybe they have a little bit too much of a barrier, and then maybe that they don't have a barrier at all. Yep. And so if you can kind of speak to those two extremes on your philosophies and what you've kind of, because I think you have to be intentional. Yes. Don't let it just happen. So what would you say to those two extremes?
Well, if you're going to err on one side, can I encourage you to err on the side of no boundaries and have everybody close to you?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. To hide in your green room and to be in your ivory tower and come down to the peasants once in a while is weird leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, I think hopefully that's been broken. I've probably erred on that too much. Because we just do life together.
Yeah.
I think about it last year. Katie and I, we took the kids on a cruise a week ago, and a year ago during that cruise was a bunch of just radiant staff. Like we just invited some friends. Like, hey, let's all go out.
Sure.
And we thought about like that's kind of weird. It was a little weird that we were just hanging out. It's a thriving church. There's a lot of people on staff, and we were just playing cards on the deck on a cruise ship. But at the same time, I want to be that leader.
For sure.
I want to be that leader that is approachable, open door policy. People can challenge up, support down. I think me and you model this very well. So our families are friends. You came over the other night. The kids are all swimming in the pool. We're hanging out talking. We're talking about things that are not church related. But at the same time, and we've traveled all over the world together, Bobby and I. But at the same time, there's a level of respect and honor that, I'm your pastor, I'm your boss, but at the same time, we're friends. We're in each other's weddings. Like, it's just, that tension, it's a tension to manage and a problem to solve.
Yeah. And maybe if I can just piggyback on that, those that are maybe second chair leaders. But what I mean by second chair is anyone who's not the chief leader, doesn't mean you report directly to the lead pastor. Maybe your layers removed. Maybe you're on the dream team. Is that I think a healthy understanding of, I know that I have the relational equity with you where I could challenge you on any. I could say, hey man, that was off or this was off. But the context and the way that I approach that is everything. And I feel like in some ways I've earned that.
You have.
And I'm not going to challenge in the wrong setting. With new staff. It's going to be behind closed doors, very respectful, because I think that creates trust. And for top tier leaders as well as support staff and everything in between, trust is the single most important ingredient, because we know that we have the best intentions in mind. I'm going to drop the ball, you're going to drop the ball, and we have to realize that trust is what is going to be the glue that holds us together, because we're not perfect. We're going to blow it, we're going to have a bad day, we're going to have an off day. But I do love the fact that you err on the side of vulnerability, the side of trust. I think it removes this idea of the security guard side. It's like, Pastor, why maybe you don't need a security guard, right? Which
is a real issue. I mean, but can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Well, two things off of that. I think it's important that we have vocalized over the year that we're committed to each other.
For sure.
And that's a huge thing. There's many times I'll sit down with Bobby and be like, Bobby, I am committed to the Sasser family. I am a huge Sasser fan. Sasser's his last name, by the way, just so for all the listeners.
Who's Sasser?
And then Bobby has made it very clear. He continually says, I am on Team Aaron. Like, I am a part of Radiant. This is my church. We are here. This is our roots. And you know what? Things can change.
For sure.
God can call people different places. But what it's done during this season is to know that, there's a loyalty aspect to each other that is so crucial. I'll say this. You have done the best job probably that I've ever experienced on really making sure that you don't ever get to a place where you treat what is uncommon as common and, in a group setting. Hey, Aaron, just chill out. You
sure.
I've had people get close to me and we'll start working out together. We'll hang out. And then eventually the familiarity gets in there and they start treating me like I'm your 18-year-old buddy.
Yeah.
We're not buddies. We're friends. We want to do this thing together. And that ruins it. Ruins the whole relationship.
Yeah.
So I think having both of those is so crucial. But as a leader, can I just say this? Like, err on the side of getting really close. Everybody's like, how do you protect your heart? And people are going to let you know. You know how many people have left our team and moved away? And really, I've had to go before the Lord. I've had to cry in front of my wife. I've cried in front of our executive leadership team with people that have left the church and they promised me everything. And it hurts.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's worth. I look back and I look at the years I invested in him or her, and I go, you know what? It's still worth it. There's still now a success because of my influence in my life that I was able to put influence in them. So celebrate the wins and realize that you won't see all the fruit on the side of eternity.
So let's talk about that just for a moment, if you would, because you've made a statement, and I don't have it written down, but I remember this idea of you don't want to create barriers for the future people that are coming in because of maybe the present hurt or the past hurt. On you still want to be an open book and still want to kind of connect. So with that, how have you guarded your heart in terms of, scars are the credentials of life, right? All of us are going to have some cuts. All of us are going to have some, some transitions and different things. So what have you done to maintain kind of an openness towards newer people that are maybe joining the team, new relationships that God opens up for you? And how have you not guarded against those past hurts?
Well, I think part of it is, first of all, you got to vent to the Lord. I go to him. I love what you said about scars. I'll show everybody my scars. I don't show everybody my wounds.
That's good.
Big difference between the two. A wound is an open cut, an open sore. You show that to a professional, or you show that to your spouse. I'll show that to my executive leadership team. People have left, and I've sat with Bobby and vented. I just can't. I'm frustrated.
Yeah,
that's okay. I would never do that with my staff.
Absolutely.
I would never do that with the church. I'm never gonna verbally vomit on the church and tell them how mad I am about so and so leaving or so and so abandoning me. That's one thing. I really think the way that you honor someone on the way out celebrates and positions your heart for the Lord to bring in the right person that's next. And it positions you to just trust that, if God brought somebody out, then he's going to bring somebody in that's going to take it to the next level.
That's good.
And we've seen that in every area. I've had incredible leaders. One of the guys, and I know he listens to this, so I'll celebrate him. He promised me a year. He said he would move down here, be with me a year, with my friend Jacob.
Yeah.
And Jacob's a spiritual son. I love him to death. And so he promised me a year. He wanted to learn church planting. He stayed 3 years.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. But when he left, it was really hard because he's such a dynamic personality. And I love doing life with him.
For sure.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So it was hard. It was hard for me to see him go. But the way I honored him on the way out, I think really set us up. And that campus is thriving, and it's doing awesome. And I think what it did is it positioned me to really respect and go, okay, if God is leading this person on, then God's not going to forsake me.
Yeah.
And he's going to keep us excited and going to not forsake the ministry that's going to be there. So I've just got to keep my heart open that God has always got something better next.
For sure. And it's God's church. It's God's team.
His church.
And I think that's a healthy perspective. With that, if you could, because maybe there is some, there are some teams maybe that are going through transition, some pastors that are maybe feeling some of that. I think realizing that it's probably hopefully not gonna be a common theme where it's unhealthy and toxic, but people are being moved to and fro by the Lord. So with that, when you think transition, what are some of the top principles, the best practices for how to evaluate that? What does the behind the scenes conversations look like? How do you do it publicly? If you want to kind
First
of
of all, don't beat yourself up when people transition from your team.
For sure.
So my mother's husband, she got married to a guy about a few years ago, and he owns a company. And he says they've gone through 74 employees this year.
Wow.
And they only have 15 employees in the company. So it's the rotation.
Yeah, and
you can feel bad, but it's a warehouse work. It's an entry-level job. And it's the world we live in. So he can beat himself up about transition or realize it's the world we live in too.
Absolutely.
So we have 80 plus employees. There's not a week we go by that somebody's not transitioning. Not because we have a bad culture, but just because things happen in life. Somebody moves, someone's spouse gets relocated. So here's what we have discovered with this. First of all, if they need to be fired, you fire fast. Fast. Please. What we have recognized is the longer we've held out, it's only hurt the ministry. Most of the time I've held out because I think, oh my gosh, this whole thing's going to fall apart if they leave. No, if they're toxic in your company, get rid of them. I've heard it said that, if they're the problem and you don't get rid of them, eventually they're no longer the problem. You're the problem. So you've got to get rid of them. You've got to make a decision. So we do the 3 T's of all of our problems. And so I think this is helpful. We think if anybody's an issue, they've got a training issue. So we're going to always try to train them better. And honestly, every organization, including ours, can train people better.
And on that one, I think that is the time, just so people didn't miss that part. The first step is not what's wrong with them. It's what's wrong with us. It's a man in the mirror, man or woman in the mirror of like, how have I not communicated? How have I not trained? Have I gotten everything? Because a lot of times, especially in church planning, startup church, first 10, 15 years of church, there's a lot of tribal knowledge that's in here in our head, and we haven't translated. So I just want the listener to hear, pastor, leader, like before you start just cutting people off, like it is us. Like we have to do a self-evaluation and reflect on how we've trained. So
always going to reflect on how we train. We're going to make sure, do we have an SOP that makes it very clear? Did we do our part? Do they need training and do they need development in their emotional health, their physical health? We have to go through everything. Okay, have we done everything we can do in their position? So I'm always going to put it on me in that area.
And one thing on that is I think there's the competency, but also cultural.
Yes.
Because we in church world, in every organization, but especially the dynamics of church culture, we've seen people transit. This is their first ministry job. And the cultural piece cannot be overlooked. Like there's a component of ministry that is a different type of job than just selling widgets. And there's nothing wrong with sales and marketing and all those types of careers. Those are really great careers. We need those. The medical field, the legal, all of those things. But ministry is a unique role where competency and culture kind of intertwine more than ever before.
Absolutely. And then we always have the third one on there, which is obviously character. So if there's a character issue, and I'm always going to default on they don't know. They don't know.
Benefit of the doubt.
Know that you don't yell at someone. You don't know that you don't cuss. You don't know that that we tithe, we give God our first. They just don't know that we show up on time. So we're gonna deal with all of those things. So there's always gonna be a training. We have tried many times to transfer people to another department. This one gets messy. It's easier early days because earlier days you're hiring mostly jack of all trades, and you can get people into different departments easier. That's harder now because we're hiring more specialists. So if we hire you as a children's pastor, who I think we have the best children's pastor in America, but if we hire you as a children's pastor and you fail as a children's pastor, we're not going to move you to a videographer just because we love you. But we have tried transferring people, and that's worked.
For sure.
Multiple times. We have multiple campuses, moving people to campuses, moving people to different jobs. That's worked. And then our third one is always going to be termination. And it's just, that didn't work. With good transition, so that's the bad transition. With good transition, here's what I'm going to do. I'm never going to air my grievances with the public for anybody that's doing that. I'm always going to over honor. I learned this from so many mentors in my life that, you honor to death from the stage. You love them to death. How you celebrate them leaving really sets the culture of how you'll receive the next person in. And I want you to hear that, because if people think that, you bashed that person as you left, then they're going to walk in going, when I leave, they're going to bash me too. This is not a trustworthy place. So I've set a culture. We actually had a call the other day with our staff, with our ELT. And I said, our culture will always be that we are kind to those who are transitioning.
For sure.
Always. We can be frustrated. We can be mad. But we are always going to be very kind and overly generous financially and overly generous with time to bless them. So we're going to make sure that transition does. What we've learned, and I think this is important, is long transitions are not a win.
Absolutely not, yeah.
We have transitioned when it's time multiple to go, campus pastors, multiple departments, and they'll get to us, and they've talked to us, and they go, I just think at the end of 2028, we really feel like God's leading me somewhere else. And we go, great. You have a month on our staff. We'll celebrate you. Now we'll pay you. We'll bless you.
Yes.
And we're going to take care of you But if their mind shifts, their job needs to shift.
Well, and I think that is good for the listeners to hear as well, because pastors, leaders, business leaders, is by the time they're having the conversation with you, the amount of conversations they've had with maybe their spouse if they're married, their best friends, their parents, their mentors, it's been marinating in their mind for a while, and so it's not doing them it's doing them a disservice. The ministry that they lead, their team, and
every person that we've had a long transition, we have come back and gone, that was too long.
It's too long.
It's too long.
And it's out of the care for them. We thought we were doing them a service, and it's not a win either way. So
we don't want to cut them off. We want to bless them financially, but we also understand it's not a win to keep people around. Let me just say one more thing about transition is we learned something amazing from the military. Yeah. And I went to the base that we have down here is MacDill, and I was there for the changing of the command. So the wing commander came to Radiant. He was a crucial part of our church, and then he transitioned to Colorado Springs, and the new commander came in. So I went to the ceremony, and it was so amazing because the general's up there. The general celebrates the wing commander, gives some nice speeches, and then the whole command is there. Everybody's there. All the Air Force people are there, and they're all there. And then he goes, "Okay, great. That was your previous leader. Here's your next leader. Take it away." And they give him a speech, and he leads. And we've approached that when it comes to our campuses, hey, your campus pastor is transitioning. We love him or her. We celebrate them. We're behind them. They're gone. There's a reception in the lobby. Here's your new campus pastor.
Exactly. And I think what it does is it brings clarity. It brings vision. And people, something, the hard lesson I've had to learn is we're all replaceable. It's like
we are.
God's positioned us for such a time as this, and God's positioning other people. So, well, with that, that's great. All things leadership, which, I know they can go back through the archives and hear a lot more on leadership, but I would love to just do some rapid fire real quick, just as we kind of end our time.
Sure.
So, best book you read this year?
I read a few different books.
You wrote a book, yeah.
I wrote a book.
That's the book. It's like that's what a flex. It's like actually my book was the best book.
My book was the best book. You know what? I've read so many amazing leadership books this year. Honestly, I have to give my boy a shout out, Mark Batterson. Yeah. Win the Day was so easy and so game changer for me. And I started at the beginning of the year. I read so many of these like cultural classic books this year during the summer, and all of them I was like, man, Win the Day was so much better. So if you haven't win the Day, it just talks about mastering your day.
It is. He writes, it's great, but it's easy to read. I love it. Yep. So this can go down a rabbit trail, but I'm going to ask just one. What's one thing you would do if you were to plan again?
I'd invest early on in a better children's ministry.
Children's ministry.
Well, I feel like that's where we have a great one now. We would be light years away if we had invested better in our children's ministry early on.
Love that. Yeah, yep. I agree. Biggest fail as a leader?
Biggest fail is not investing in children's ministry. I think my biggest fail is probably, again, over trusting, probably being a little too open with some people that were newer, and then here's a good one. Ready? Over celebrating the extremes and under celebrating the middle of the road, sustainable, consistent leaders.
Yes.
The two extremes always get the attention of the leader.
They do.
So it's the loud, crazy person that's right there, and then it's the extreme, problem child. You got the two like big extremes that mostly get all celebrated from the stage, get celebrated from our staff. And I realized the church is built off of the healthy middle of the road, consistent. They just show up. They're there. And I wish I would have celebrated them more.
So with that, because I agree, it's the children's books, right? The Little Engine That Could, the Tortoise and the Hare. Yep. So what have you done differently with that? Because I think there's some leaders here that the squeaky wheel gets the attention. There are just those faithful few, maybe even some church planners listening that were there from launch day, but they're not they're not on the stage. They're not leading those big kind of public ministries. How would you, or what would you do to show appreciation or value more?
So I'm always drawn to the loud person. Mm-hmm. So when I was around some loud people recently, I started asking this question: who are you most impressed with on the staff? That is a surprise. And I started asking them, and it was interesting. I'll give a shout out to one of the guys. So I asked some of our team that, and out of 5 guys that were with me, 3 of them said this guy named Garrett.
Nice.
Now, I don't know Garrett. I know Garrett a little bit. Garrett's
you don't work directly with him. Yeah.
Garrett is not a loud, upfront guy. And all of them said, great character, hard work ethic, loves his wife, takes care of his child, builds teams. And I'm sitting there going, wow, you can look on our Celebrate shout out staff channel on Slack.
Yeah.
Garrett's name's never mentioned there.
No,
but Garrett's working the system. So what I've realized is I got to get past the loud and get to who's actually running this thing that's not getting celebrated all the time. And you just got to ask the questions.
I love that. Which, by the way, just a side note, listener, if you are one of those staff that are maybe a little bit more behind the scenes, just keep doing what you're doing. You're not doing it for the accolades of men and women.
And share this podcast with your leader.
Yeah, share it with your leader. But shout out to Gary at our St. Pete location.
He's the man.
So last question.
Yep.
What do you do when you feel stuck?
So what I do is I take a little bit of time away. So if I feel stuck, I take a little bit of time. I feel like a change of scenery and a change of my routine gives me a change of perspective. So I think it's a change of place, a change of pattern gives me a change of perspective. So if I'm ever
say that again,
a change of place, a change of pattern gives you a change of perspective.
So write that down.
So what I have done is I've done prayer retreats.
Yeah.
I've done a day away. I've done just time to go, I just can't figure this out.
For sure.
I've also brought it to our team. And I've brought many times to our team going, I can't figure this out. Help me. And multiple voices speaking in the same thing brings so much change.
That's really good.
So you want to have different voices involved in that. You want to, I never want to be the smartest person at a table, which is pretty easy for me not to be, because I surround myself with smart people. But if you feel stuck, get a change of scenery, get a change of your routine, get before the Lord, invite his presence in, and figure it out. You can figure it out. And by the way, nothing that we're doing as church or business leaders
for sure
is new.
For sure.
Nothing
new under the sun.
There's nothing new. None of us are innovating the newest next thing. Okay. Yeah. None of us are Elon Musk. Okay. I hate to say it. We're not Steve Jobs. Okay. I think it's awesome. We're not those people. So that means that everybody's done what you've done better than you. Figure out what they're doing.
For sure.
And so there's somebody that's been a church our size before with this many campuses, and we know who they are.
Yeah.
And we're figuring out everything they're doing to get better at it. We have a coach that continually coaches us to get better. Because I just refuse to figure it out on my own. And that's what I've done.
Well, I think that's great. And I think that's a great place to land the plane because, we're in December. So hopefully people are listening to this as it comes out. If you're listening to this in the future, then apply all this now.
Yep.
But you're at a crucial time. It's the end of 2022. It's a fresh year coming up in just a few weeks. And I think all of these principles come together. But I think just to recap some principles, focus on your relationship with the Lord, whether you're leading a business, you're married, not married, you're a ministry leader, wherever you're at in life. Spiritual, leadership is the best. If you're married, focus on your marriage. You're only going to be as healthy as your marriage.
Yes.
Physical fitness, have some principles around feeling healthy. Again, not the vanity. And I think this has been great. It's been so refreshing to just kind of hear your heart. Thank you again, just for being vulnerable and transparent. And we're looking forward to 2023.
2023 is going to be awesome. And hey, I would really appreciate make sure you share this content. Let us know on social media that you're listening to it, and we will see you and be connected with you in this next year. Thanks for listening to Made for More.